Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. This is your host, Severen Henderson, again. And we're here with another episode of Firecast. This episode is actually a dual episode. The episode is also going to be on the original Designated Drinkers feed. That's another Department 3C production as well as this one. And that's the show, if you haven't checked it out, that is the show that's dedicated to spirits. Well, not even just spirits. We drink everything. We talk about drinking pop, soda, Malort, liqueurs, liquors, just everything. It has to do with consumption. We talk about it. We talk about the service industry, and the name of that podcast is the Original Designated Drinkers. And we just got on Apple, so shout out to our producers for getting that handled for us. Thank you very, very much. But this episode, it dealt with more mental health issues, and if it has to do with mental health, then I like talking about it. So I told the guest and Ambrosia, the other host, the main host of the show, I'm just the kind of follow-up guy, but I told them that I was going to take and put this episode on my podcast just to have some additional content. They said they were both cool with that. So the episode, we talk about Eris, the restaurant, brewery, and cider. And we just have a good time. The episode is about imposter syndrome, mental health within the service industry. And if you like it, you can check us out at the Original Designated Drinkers. As far as Firecast goes, if you have any information or anything that you want to give us, feedback that you want to tell us, if we good, if we bad, anything at all, our email address is info@department3c.com. You can check us out at www.department3c.com. That's the website where you can catch most of the blogs. And you can connect with me through most social medias at Department 3C on the professional level. And on the personal level, you can connect with me at I am Sevy. That's at symbol IAMSEVY. That's where most of my friends and family, they call me Sevy. You can call me Sevy too. I'm with it. Just don't call me late for dinner. Anyway, offer us feedback if you have any. Connect with me on those levels, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for checking out the episode. Hello, everyone out there. This is Severen
and Ambrosia.
And welcome back for the first episode of 2022. I almost called it 2023. 2022 of the Original Designated Drinkers.
The podcast where we dive deep into drinking one libation at a time.
See, switched it up. Let you do that part this time. So today's podcast is brought to you with our guest, Michelle Foik. So before we get to our super great in-depth conversation we're going to have about all of the cider world's finest, we just want to say, again, this is our first episode of 2022, and we were unable to get to our regular studio, so this is kind of an on-the-road production of the Original Designated Drinker. So if you hear a few extra sounds in there, you hear cats running around. And
that's my turtle.
And well, that's what I was going to say. Turtles punching glass, all of that fun stuff. Then you know where we're coming from. You know what we're doing. So that is all. Just wanted to give a quick, what's the word?
Rundown?
No, not rundown. Not a warning. Disclaimer. There we go. Okay. So back to the podcast at hand. So like I said, we're on location doing our thing, and we want to make sure, as always, we give you the best content that we can. So without further ado, Michelle, how are you?
Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm saying thank you for having me on your show. I'm very excited today. So
thanks for taking out the time.
Oh my gosh. Yes, of course. I mean, it's not just, Women International Month or Women's History Month. It is also time for Michelle to have some fun with people she loves. So Here we go.
There we go.
I like this. I like this New Year's resolution.
Yes, I'm with that. And like I was saying, it's March and we're just now getting together to record. The year's been going on for a while. COVID restrictions are lifting slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. I feel like they've been lifted and gone.
Yeah. Well,
At
that's
least in my world.
no, that's a great point, because I was talking with a buddy over there. He's like, how do you feel that COVID's just gone? I said, yeah, you're right. It is just gone. Like one day it was here, next day it's like, we don't care. So it's just gone.
I think 2 years going on the third year is something that went by so fast that we think it was something that just kind of came and went, but it didn't. It was 2 years of our lives that we had, all these different restrictions and things we had to do, the mask, the vaccines and everything. But I don't know, as science says, once COVID actually started actually hitting everybody, but not making them sick enough to go to the hospital for some cases, it just became something a little bit more common. And I think once they said, okay, we're going to take the masks off and we're going to take away the vaccine cards, which I'm not going to get into that right now because I had a lot of different reasons as myself, but then I had a lot of different reasons as a business.
Yes.
So opinions about both of those directions with personal and business. But I tell you, I don't feel right now that anybody cares about the last 3 years.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. It's like you said, we had a traumatic injury to happen to the entire globe, and like you said, we can get into all of that. That's a whole different podcast. So.
Well, speaking of business,
Yes.
You have one, don't you?
I do. I am one of the co-founders of Eris Brewery and Cider House. Yeah. It is the first woman-owned brewery and cider house in the state of Illinois.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
We got that from March. Yeah, we got Women's International.
You got it right in there. See? If you guys can't see this, but Ambrosia's like, yeah, I know.
Exactly, right. Pointing to it as well. She should. She's awesome at getting us awesome guests.
Aw, thank you.
So tell us about the cider industry and your angle of it and from it and all of that other fun stuff, please.
First, can you tell us about the cider that you brought us? Not to jump the gun, but
yeah.
I'm super excited about this because this isn't one of your year rounds. This is a one-off that you did?
Yeah, this is a completely one-off. It's everything opposite of what I was just going to tell you my mission was for Eris, because this is definitely a much more complex cider that we're going to be drinking right now. We had a good relationship and still do with CH Distillery.
Okay.
In Chicago. And they, as you might know already, are now the creators and makers of the Jepson Malort liqueur.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
we had a Malort dedication episode, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm with that.
I also brought Malort to drink alongside of it.
Why
and I
not?
also love Malort. So it's one of my favorite little shots or drinks or whatever else you want to call it. Cordials or happiness, I suppose.
Yes, I like Malort as well. And we have, like I said, we had a whole dedication episode to Malort. And then because of Ambrosia and understanding the complexities of it, and sometimes I tell people, oh, I actually like Malort. You're lying. That's not the case. I'm like, no, it's actually...
I get the same answer every time I say I like Malort. Everyone's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how can you drink that? It tastes, they come up with these crazy ideas of what it tastes like. I'm like, have you actually ever tasted it?
Right. Like really tasted it. It tastes like a flower pretty much to me.
Grapefruit pits, right? The grapefruit pit. Like, I agree with you. I don't think it's as bad as everybody else claims it to be, but the Malort face is definitely a thing.
It's
so
a
I
real
get
thing.
it. It's just the first time you've ever had anything crazy like that.
I've seen a lot of people make that face when they take their first shot of anything.
I always capture that shot. So, yeah, but because of our relationship with CH, we had this amazing 2 years in a row now. Cheers. Where they've given us a barrel. And the first barrel had rum and then Malort because it's one of their experimental series. And then the second barrel this year was a bourbon Malort barrel. So we have our base cider that was put into that barrel for about 8 months, 9 months almost. And then we pulled it out and we named it Alpha Ort. So that it was sold by the bottle for a while and now only at the pub. It's not something we sell out to the wholesaler or anything, but it's definitely a treat and fans really dig it. And even people that don't like Malort really like what the apple does in that barrel with Malort because it's just one of those nice complements when you're adding grapefruit or adding any other kind of fruit to your apple, So I really enjoy it and it's much different than the rum Malort barrel. Mm-hmm. That was the aroma on that was so much more ripened apple, like it was going to be sweet caramel. But then when you tasted it, it was still as dry as it is that you're tasting it right now, along with that little Malort flavor profile of the grapefruit. This one, on the other hand, the aroma is not the same. The aroma is definitely more drier, little bit of caramel maybe, but not as that idea that I'm going to fool you that this is going to be a sweet cider. It's definitely not. The aroma is apples, apple skins, grapefruit, and the flavor profile is very dry.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. It tastes like all of what you described to the T. Usually I read the bottle, but this and describe the bottle for our listeners, but this one is pretty basic. It's the coolest part about it is the sticker on the bottle. The app. Say it one more time.
Affelort. It's German. Yeah,
okay.
Affelort.
Cider aged in Malort barrels. So it tastes, like I said, like all of what you described. This is delicious to me. And even for the person that necessarily does or doesn't like Malort, I think it'd be an interesting tasting profile for anyone trying to maybe try something different cider wise.
So what are your tasting notes, Sev?
So for me, I definitely in that back end get the Malort-y taste. I taste that, but like you said, it tastes real fresh. It tastes like I'm still not good enough to know which apples are which, but it tastes like a bite into a fresh apple that you'd like go out and pick off a tree. Like the skin, the maybe a seed or two.
Yeah, a ripe apple rather than something that's ripened and ready to fall off the tree. Like this one still wants to stay on the tree. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to pick it. It's not one of the ones that you found on the ground that looks good enough to harvest.
Yeah, yeah, and the same thing I feel like too is like also like the skin of that same apple is got that not that there's a lot of tannin to it, but it's got that like starchy kind of flavor profile on your tongue. So I'm getting that from the bitterness of the Malort. But in my mind, I could be biting into one of those apples that were like, "Ooh, what happened to this apple? You know, it's not ready yet. Let's put it back on the tree." You know?
Yeah, picked it too soon. But that's what it tastes like. So.
So I'm very excited to be drinking this cider with Michelle, and I do want to touch on all of what's going on here for the Eris logo, and then we're going to dive into what we are actually here to talk about outside of the booze. So Severen, if you want to describe this logo.
Absolutely. You know what? When I was looking at the bottle, I was concentrating on the front, didn't even see the back. So Eris, and we have an E with a, well, I can't say north, south, east, west because it's going diagonal, but bunch of arrows on the E, so that's pretty cool. ERIS, Brewery and Cider House, and we have a woman with a feather necklace, possibly, with a ponytail, and she is looking very hard at what looks to be an apple with an acorn in the middle. Is that what that is?
Very good. I mean, for someone that has a first glance at that look, you did very well. Very, very well. So yes, the E with the 3 stars or with the 3 arrows is Eris is the goddess of chaos.
Oh, okay.
And a universal symbol for chaos is the chaotic star, which is an 8-pointed star with arrows.
Got it.
So unfortunately, we couldn't put 4. I'd like to have, but only 3 fit on that E. So that came in for. Oh no, we do have a 4th. I completely forgot. It is in the middle of the E.
It's the middle of the E.
I forgot about that. Yes. So thank you. Well, I guess I was much cleverer before I remember. Yes, one of my really good friends, Hugo, came up with this logo. We wanted something masculine as well as feminine. Because you can split apart Eris, if you ask me, into a brewery and into a cider house. There's 2 different things.
Okay.
Now, neither of them have to be one or the other. But I felt at the time, because we didn't want to go with the whole idea and marketing as we're a woman-owned business. And I know that sounds silly, and it's kind of going to go into the reasoning of what we're going to be talking about later. But so I felt that we needed something more masculine, and I felt that we could get away with the actual logo that we wanted, which was more feminine. Okay. So the woman on the logo itself is the feminine part of it because we are what we are. We're a woman-owned business. Now, the apple and the hop, so it's a hop cone.
A hop
You're
cone,
very close to an acorn. That makes, I mean, not an acorn, but you said pine cone, I think it was?
I said acorn.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hop.
Okay.
So that
I
represents
should've known
hops
that.
and beer and apples and cider. And yes, Eris is definitely looking at that. She's literally mesmerizing the apple. I feel it more like she's controlling the apple rather than the apple is controlling her or controlling the idea of her looking at it. It's like, no, she's controlling that thing right now.
Yeah,
you know?
it's pretty. Yeah, because I can see that because it's floating and it's like she's making it float. So yeah, with that.
Yep. So we're really excited to have that. Like I said, my friend Hugo was drawing Maleficent
Okay.
at the bar that I was working at. And Katie and I we both have a lot of hair, you know, and when we put it up on our heads, it was always like kind of like in a bun up on top. And so once he started stripping away Maleficent, it started to look more like something we wanted. And we love the idea of gods and goddesses. We love mythology. Eris worked out really well. Part of the marketing for Eris was also taking... Eris was the goddess of chaos. She was not invited to a wedding where Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite were at. Then she got mad, so she created a golden apple with the name Khaleesi on it to the fairest. And she threw it into the wedding and just sat back and watched as the three goddesses and their egos got in the way, caused a fight, and then demanded that one of them be granted the apple. And of course, the one that got granted the apple was Aphrodite.
Okay.
Now, Aphrodite promised Paris, who was the young human that was chosen to pick one of the goddesses. And he was in love with Helena from Troy. So one mythology turned into a historic event is what Eris caused the Trojan War.
Chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So we said, hey, if we're making beer, there's 120 breweries in the city.
Yeah.
What can we do that's different? And we were able to create cider. We're the only ones left that can have a cider house, a brewery, and a full service bar with liquor. We're the last one.
It's amazing.
So, right. So
That
we
is
got
amazing.
granted all of our licenses. And so we used the same thing. Eris came into the brewery world. She threw her apple in and said, I'm going to cause some chaos. And we got the last license left.
Oh, that's
Well done.
awesome. Yeah, that's sweet. I have been listening to a book. What's it called? It's a mythology book by well, I can't remember who it's by, but Stephen Fry reads it, and so I like listen to it to go to sleep. And so I heard that story
Oh, really?
through osmosis in my dreams, because he like tells all these different mythology stories, and I got it off of Audible, and it's the book one in his series of all these books, and it just talks about like the beginning of the time, and time began from chaos, and talks about all the gods and beating each other up and eating the kids, and
Oh, they are so wacky. Very
Yes.
wacky stories going on in the mythology.
it even gets into the Titans a little bit. It's an interesting book. So thank you for telling the story better than I could have in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
That's well done. So today, Michelle and I do a lot in cider.
Yeah.
A lot.
We represent cider. We try to represent cider no matter who we represent. We represent everybody when it comes to a whole of cider. So
Yeah.
give us the apples.
Yeah. And so we were hanging out and planning Chicago Cider Week, which is going to be in June this year.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
And we got on to a topic of conversation that I think, and as Sev has said many times in this podcast and some of his others, is that it all starts with a conversation. And I wanted to talk today about imposter phenomenon.
Phenomenon?
So I was I did a bunch of research on this.
You imagine that. Oh my.
I know she made that pretty grand because I was like, I thought it was a syndrome, but no, it's a phenomenon.
Yeah, I thought it was a
So
syndrome
they're saying
too.
to not call it the syndrome because having it being placed on the person isn't appropriate because it happens as part of the system and the structure that we live in. And it's not your personal problem. It's not my personal problem. It's a phenomenon that affects us, is how they are changing that language on that. But
Wow, I need to go back to that therapist because I did not know that. Honestly, I didn't know that. I would have always thought it was my brain.
No.
That it was my own. I can't even find the right word to explain to you that
Yeah, no, it's not just you. Turns out it's everybody. Well, we can get into that, that it isn't everybody. But so imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon, when you feel like you're fooling people because you don't believe that the other believe you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, first of all, I want to thank you for being vulnerable and having this conversation. And hopefully people out there can listen to this and be inspired and know that they're, one, not alone, and two, that it's not your brain that's malfunctioning, it's the system.
Right. Yeah, this was at least a good 3 years of my life that I was wrapped around this idea that I wasn't good enough and that I was fooling everybody in the process of doing it, plus myself. So
Until you make it.
Yeah.
Kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon. It was also in a very dark point in my life when I was changing my life, my culture in a way that I had to reflect on it without letting the rest of the world know about it.
Okay.
So I made a choice without telling everybody why I made the choice, and I chose to keep it private rather than actually explaining to people why I'm doing this. Because to me, it was my personal choice, and I didn't need everybody else to know about it. But with that being said, I kept it hidden, and it was not easy to resolve the idea that maybe I'm just not good enough either. Does that make sense? So it was a build-up after build-up after build-up, and then I hit rock bottom.
So how have you pushed through that? Do you find it's gotten easier working through it, or is it still just as hard as it was 3 years ago?
No, it is way easier. And that is why I want to talk about it. And that's why I want people to know about it, because it took therapy. It took a lot of chances of going out there and doing it and then talking myself off the ledge when I got home that I wasn't going to be found out. So for me, it's a chemical imbalance. It does have something to do with your mentality. I'm also, I have depression, but I'm one of those depressed folks that doesn't just lie around the bed or finds a hole to dive into. That's not my depression. My depression is missing out, being somewhere. So for me, if I'm around a bunch of people, I am charged. I am going to be charged. I'm going to be up. I'm ready to go. Let's party. Let's do whatever. I'm around people. I'm very excited. This is so much fun. But when I got home and I was by myself and my brain kind of got to its own process of thinking all these things, I started losing my charge. And I would then contemplate the idea that, wow, I am this happy-go-lucky person in front of people, but when I go home, I'm not. So I had a bit of a difference on that end too, because depression is it's something that you have to either understand that you have or you don't. And it's either okay to go talk to a therapist or take medicine. And it was a long time before I realized it's okay to take medicine also on top of it. So I don't want to change the subject, but all these things impact, imposter.
No, you're not changing
syndrome.
the subject at all. I feel like it's very on topic. I don't want to sit around and disagree, especially when, like, I'm sure it's science backed and all your super research has gone into it. But I'm good at taking the blame and the brunt for a lot of things. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my thinking of it. But I still think the syndrome with it being with the person is valid. I understand it's a phenomenon in the world, true, but I still feel like the syndrome part is a valid explanation or definition of imposter stuff.
We can say imposter syndrome. If the point is how it makes us all feel rather than the terminology at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You know what? And that's a huge point too, as far as the terminology, because you can sit around and argue about a word, what word means, where it came from, and everything else. And at the end of the day, it's how you feel. Really, it's just how you feel about virtually everything. So.
But I also feel like it's how I feel about myself. That's why I tend to agree, because I feel that I thought it was something that I have done on my own. Well, with my mental health. So I would love to hear a little bit more about why a phenomenon, and hopefully maybe you can clear me up here, because I would love to connect the dots. Because like that's another thing about talking about this to freely in front of people, is that you learn different things, and not until you learn those things can you connect dots. And if they connect, they connect. If they don't, they don't. That's okay too. But I think I understand the phenomenon theory. I think I do. And I'm just trying to put myself in that aspect of it, if it actually was a phenomenon for me or a syndrome for me.
Yeah, I like that. So as far as the phenomenon goes, it can be researched. Cheers.
Cheers.
The research that's being done is what they'll do is they'll take two groups of people, and they'll give one group of people restraints, and they'll give the second group of people no restraints. And the people with the restraints performed more poorly than the people without them. And so, like, taking a test would be one of the examples on what they set up. And with the ones that were under this restraint was that they were told that this is the hardest test that they'll ever take, and that everybody flunks it when they take it, and it's going to be really horrible. And then the other group, they didn't say that at all. The other group performed much higher on the test, whereas the group where they were told that they were going to be set up to fail actually failed.
That happened to me in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There was a test that I had to take, and just flat out everybody says, yeah, you're not going to pass this test. Don't even worry about it, because nobody passes the test on the first try. So I didn't pass it on the first try. I didn't pass it on the second try. I didn't pass it on the third try.
Was it because you got in your head?
I got in my head. Well, the thing is, I just thought, like, I'm not going to pass this test the first time, so why even sweat it? And I saw somebody else. I don't want to say they weren't smart, but they went in, and I'm not saying that.
No. I'm just.
They went in and took the test and passed it on the first try. No problem. No nothing. Just easy breezy. Here we go. Pass this test first time. And it was at that point in my life I said, I'm never listening to anyone tell me what I can and can't do on a test. I don't care if it's the bar exam mixed with the LSAT and the GMAT with a calculus test just for fun at the beginning. I'm not going to let somebody tell me that I'm not going to pass this test. If I fail it, that's fine, but I'm not letting somebody else's studying and brain cognition affect what I'm going to do on any test anymore, ever.
Yeah, and
so this is what I mean by phenomenon.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But I was just thinking of that also, where I never thought anybody was telling me I was doing it wrong. I was telling myself I was doing it wrong. I think I might have mentioned this, but I would walk into a room and I can bedazzle the room. Hey, Michelle's here. This is great. Hey, guys, how are you doing? I know everything about everyone. Hey, can you say a couple of words about marketing, because you used to be the marketing director of Goose Island over there, back in the day. And I'm like, sure. And I go out there and I say these things and everyone's just listening to me. And I'm like, yeah, I got them wrapped around my finger. I get home and I'm like, oh, holy shit. One or two of those people are going to know I was just talking out of my ass.
Yeah.
Because I was talking out of my ass.
Yeah.
That was the problem. That is, and if you were to ask all those people the very next day, nobody would have said that I said anything wrong. Everybody would have said that it sounded great. We understood. I learned something from it. Not my head.
Yeah, I get that.
My head was totally. Like, nope. Now you're going to have to hide, or you're just going to have to realize that people are going to be talking about you behind your back.
Yep.
And then what happens? My brain goes crazy again, because God knows I don't want people talking about me behind my back. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like, if I can't imagine if someone had a more severe case of this, how they would never want to walk out of their homes again.
Right. Well, like you said, it goes along with the depression. It goes along with the thoughts in your head that aren't necessarily the case for the world to see. And it stinks and sucks to say, but people more times than not are more concerned with what they have going on to even think about what you said, really. I mean, they listen to, oh, yeah, she seems like she knows what she's talking about. And you're thinking, oh, yeah, they think I'm full of crap, and I am full of crap. And, oh, they really don't even care that much. And you care more about what you think they think than they think.
It's almost like you have an ego that's so big that you don't realize that you really don't. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Not enough people care about you to be like, oh my God, she's so lying out of her ass, and I'm going to talk about her all week long. Like, hello.
I think
But somewhere along the line, I ran into that, and I thought I was bigger than I was a little bit, but also not big enough to realize that, like, you're doing a good job.
I just wrote a blog for a content marketing and copywriting class that I'm trying to pass. It's another test that I'm trying to pass. But I put up the first post and I failed it. I jumped the gun. I put it up. I thought it was good, and grammatically it is good, but it wasn't good for copywriting what they were looking for. So I took it again and got accepted. I reposted it. But inside of it, and I think the first one, not the second one, I have a line that my mother gave me a while ago. Those that, and I think I might mess it up, but I'm going to try and get it right. But those that mind don't matter. No, those that mind matter, and those that matter don't mind. Yeah, that's it.
I like that.
Back in the day when you used to be on Facebook all the time, because, I'm old, I used to put that quote up. It was that quote and also another quote that I think it was from like Dr. Seuss or something like that I felt really means something. And I think is that a Dr. Seuss quote? Might be. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But I'm telling you that one. Yeah, we'll
get our
we'll check it out.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, honestly, I think I love that quote because it's true.
It is.
It is so true.
Yep, because people who actually care about you and know about you, they be like, oh, it's whatever, it's cool. And then the people who are insignificant in the whole grand scheme of things, if they care too much, it's like, well, that's on you.
Here's my question, is that what if, so in this scenario, you go up and you speak about marketing.
Yeah.
And you go home and you're like, shit, somebody's going to figure me out. I'm a bag full of shit. And then you talk to somebody that was there in that room and they say, no, I'm also in marketing. Everything that you said was valid. You were correct. Is there any amount of convincing that can happen to alleviate that feeling of imposter syndrome?
I believe so now, but back then,
no. Yes, right. I agree.
No, back then, no.
Yes.
For those 3 years where my life was just everything in my brain and head, no. I mean, yes, it'd make me comfort at the time, but then I would just kind of like, it would fall out. It'd be like someone brought like a whisper in my brain. It said, oh yeah, and it made me feel a little bit better. And then all of a sudden one day it just went out the ear and I'm like, back to where I was.
Yeah. I know that question was to you. I was going to answer it for you. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But no, when it is, because when they say it to you, you think they're being nice. So it's like, oh, they're just trying to be nice, but they. And
then I don't want anyone coddling me either because I don't really want you to know that I did. Like I was worried about it, So, yeah, it's that twisted spiral of depression that you have and with the imposter idea of it all because. 3 years. I would say it was about 3 years. And to top it off, I added the alcohol, so of course you spiral on top of that when you start adding alcohol to help. Yeah. To help alleviate the pain or help make the night much more fun.
It's a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
And it's not the best coping mechanism. It's not a positive coping mechanism because it feels like I'm talking to myself. But
hi, welcome.
But it's right, all too true.
So looks like a lot of the studies that are done and being done on it, and there are some folks in this line of field, Kevin Coakley and Rose Clance, if you want to look their studies up and their books on it. They're great resources, but they're finding that high-achieving people are more affected by the imposter syndrome. And they also haven't run too many studies on minorities versus majorities, which I'm really interested in wondering if it is something because of how you were raised in a minority, like being raised as a woman.
Yeah.
How that can affect it. But you guys all laughed when I said high achieving. Is that
because this is the second time I've heard this?
Yeah.
And then right away that's a little of the syndrome coming out because I'm like, high achieving my ass. But, I take a look at what Eris is. I mean, when we bought the building, we bought a 4-story building, a Masonic temple on 0.24 acres. Mm-hmm. Like, who starts their first business in 2.5 acres, 4-story tall building that's over 24,000 square feet?
Right.
But at the time, no qualms.
Yep.
I didn't even go, no imposter syndrome there. I just don't think there was a syndrome anything. It was just like, oh, this looks like fun. Let's do it. It's a challenge. It wasn't until we opened the doors that I said, holy shit, what do we do? Because now we got to operate it, and now we got to make money to cover the costs that we just had, So, yeah, I understand the high achieving. I think I do, because there is a point where you want to challenge yourself for everything that you don't realize how far you're challenging yourself. You know what I'm saying? So high achieving, high anxiety, but in a good way does make sense.
But, I mean, if you didn't have all of us high achieving individuals, then we wouldn't have the great things, and we wouldn't have the great place that is Eris.
Absolutely.
If you weren't.
Yep. We wouldn't have Eris. And then I'm just even thinking, as if I can go and be selfish, I wouldn't have had half of my bucket list taken care of by the time I was 32 years old.
Well done.
I know. Crazy.
I don't even know if I have a bucket list.
What?
Maybe I should get one.
You don't need one, but it's a bucket list. It's always just kind of fun. Has anybody asked you the one thing that you want to do before you die? Do you have something? No?
No, nobody's asked me that.
Never?
Somebody's had to have asked you that.
No.
Okay, well, we're asking you now.
There we go right now. Give me
We're
2
asking
things
you
you'd like
now.
to do before you die. And that's not 2 things you'd like to do. If you knew you were going to pass away 2 days from now, what would you like to do? And don't worry about the time. If you have to travel somewhere, we'll get you there somehow.
You're gonna have to come back at the end of the episode.
All right.
Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about
Nothing.
It's just, yeah.
All right, think about it.
Yeah,
At the end
let
of
me
this
think about
cycle, at the end of this, we're going to do it. We're going to ask you that question.
All right. I'll think about
Mine constantly evolves. One day is one thing, and then the next day is something totally different. I'll give you one right now. These people are going to space like it's nothing.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there it is. There's my bucket list.
And
I wanna go to space.
that is definitely on mine. But I don't know if I'll achieve it. But I mean, if William Shatner is next to 90 and he's going to space, I think they should let Lil Sev go just cause. I mean, come on.
No, that's a great one. When I was younger, I wrote a report about Tasmania. And so when I was younger and people would ask me, what would you like to do before you die? I'm like, I'd like to go to Tasmania.
And?
I have.
How
I've
was
been
it?
to Tasmania. I was there for 2 weeks. It was fantastic. We flew into Hobart. We stayed with a friend's friend. We had a house there. We ate fresh fish off the pier in Hobart, and then we did the entire island. We slept in a car one night. I jumped out of a plane in New Zealand. The things that I said on my bucket list, it was very small. It's not something that I say, oh my God, I have to do all these things. But just as a little kid, I remember telling everybody, I'm going to go to Tasmania, and I'm going to find the Tasmanian tiger, and I couldn't find that guy yet.
There's still time.
I still think he's out there, though.
So another question that I have. So the fear of being a fraud hasn't prevented you from doing anything as far as I can see. And so is that fear of being a fraud holding your potential, or is it just something that you're beating yourself up with?
Very good question. I think that I beat myself up with it. I feel like that's the route I go because it's easier to beat yourself up rather than not make myself move. I don't know how not to move, but sometimes I make decisions because other people are making them for me. And instead of saying no, which is not the fraud part, but sometimes I get myself in situations that I don't want to be in, and I should have just said no in the first place. Just because I go with people, and I don't think of the consequences, nor do I think that it's ever going to be bad. But if you're talking about just the fraud aspect, it is me. It is solely me beating myself up on something that's not real. Yeah. I'll give you a good example. You know what? Honestly, sales.
Okay.
So that is something that I'm supposed to be doing for Eris right now. That is my department. I am finding every which way to stay within the 4 walls of Eris rather than doing my full-time job in sales. when I was working for Revolution, I was doing sales, but it came very easy. I had 50 accounts, and they were all because they called me because they knew me from Goose Island, and they knew that Revolution was the new hottest thing, and they wanted it.
That speaks to my anxiety. I hate calling people. I despise it. It like gets me. I can do it if I have to do it, and I'm actually decent at it, but I just don't want to. Like you said, when you said people call you, yeah, you can call me and we can talk and do everything else. But if I have to call and initiate, leave me alone. So.
Yeah, so Goose Island and Revolution, for those listeners out there that are not Chicago, Goose Island should probably be universal at this point, are very big, important breweries here in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was part of their makeup. I was with Goose Island when there was still just, my first interview was with John Hall, the owner, and the second interview was with Greg Call. So it was before they came corporate, before they turned around and then sold. So I got the first round of experience to be working directly with them.
You're such a badass. It's so hard. If I didn't experience this imposter bullshit, I wouldn't understand how somebody that is so accomplished as you would feel like they're a fraud. But I understand, because I also feel like I'm a fraud.
I think it's just because so many things comes naturally to me. And I dip my finger in everything. So I know it just enough to play it off to everybody that I am an expert in certain areas. But when it comes down to being an expert in one area, I don't believe it, because I just haven't sat down, studied it, or done something. Like maybe restaurants, but then I look at the food costs and the labor costs. I'm like, why the hell are these things going so crazy? Why can't I control it?
Because of the system. So here's back to this system metaphor here.
Yeah.
Of not being an expert in one area. Like, who says what an expert is? Is it because you go to a Ivy League school and get a piece of paper that costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I skipped that boat.
Yeah. Who is saying what kind of expert you are? I don't have a degree in cider, but I know it pretty well.
You know who's saying who's the expert? You are. That's who's saying it. So that's the whole thing that I was gonna bring up with the whole imposter mess.
There it is. I like it.
I'm gonna use a different word every time, but that's what I was gonna say. These expectations, and the reason that they say people that are high achievers and everything, the reason they feel like this is because the expectations of what you build up in your own mind and who you think the expert is. So even if, like we said before, somebody comes to you and say, you did an excellent job, and they really can mean that, be genuinely saying that to you, it's not up to your standard in your mind. It worked for them. It's cool for them, but it's not what I would want it to be. It's not what I imagined it would be like. I saw where I cut a corner here, or I saw where I fudged a little bit there. If you were to do it A1 spot on, then maybe you would say, oh yeah, I really knocked that out the park. But for the most part, you're making up the expert in your mind. So that's who says who the expert is, your own psyche.
Well, then I personally get into the whole mind trap of having an inflated sense of self, where if I'm calling myself the expert, I have to do this all the time, where they're like, give me a bio, like, you're an expert in this, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I always deflect. You saw me do it the other day.
Absolutely.
And deflection is my way of saying, at least to myself, that if I'm afraid that if I come off as being the expert and like I'm telling people that I'm the expert, that it's going to put even more pressure for me to perform even higher, and I won't be able to fulfill that.
Yes, but I've seen you run a room in the regards to cider. I've seen you. Oh, no, I know, but okay, let's go back to like Glint Cap.
Yes.
Okay, doing the cider flaws and the correct flavor profiles and everything like that. The introduction to the judges. You ran that room. You walk and talk like you know everything and that I would never have to worry about you like thinking opposite. So the cool part about you and I, we're very similar when it comes to that certain point, but you are also a badass and you also know a lot about the topics that you talk about. But yet we're having this conversation and yet you walked away from that thinking that what? You weren't smart enough or you weren't the expert?
I wasn't the
that
expert.
You weren't the expert, but you were. Everyone was looking at you and you answered their questions and you went and flew through it. I have seen this class taught by somebody else, not Charles, somebody else. And I was like, where the hell is Ambrosia? Because she could do 1,000 times better job than this person. Like, so you are an expert. But see, this is the thing. Here we are, two women that have gone all the way. You know, we've done really great things in our lives and we are experts at the things that we know about. Yet we still have to tell each other that we are experts because that imposter mess is still somewhere in our head. And I don't think it's that someone once told us that we're not experts. And I don't think it's that we're women either. I will not take that route. I will not go like, oh, it's because I'm a woman and I don't know enough. Like, no. I just think that there are different mental psyches out there. And I don't think enough men come out letting us know that they have these issues too. And I'm so glad that you talked about it because most of the time you won't hear men talk about it.
No, yeah, that's very true. It's hard to be vulnerable sometimes. I mean, even that is a difficult thing to do. So, anxiety.
No, I get it, right?
But seeing a perfected version of what you're trying to accomplish is kind of where I see that this imposter mess is getting me down. Is that in my mind, like Sev was saying, it's internal, and I see this ultimate end-all be-all of what an expert would look like, and I'm not that. So I feel that everybody else thinks that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's really just me.
It is totally just you. It's totally just me. It's where our brain malfunctions us.
But for the listeners, back to Glint Cap, that is the Great Lakes International Cider and Perry Competition, which will be in May this year. And hopefully we'll do some on-the-road stuff with that one.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Ambrosia was the speaker and the head. What do you call yourself at the time?
We were calling... It's not appropriate what we were actually calling that title.
Do you want to put that out in the podcast?
No.
Or should we just hold off on that?
We're going to hold off
what
on
are
that.
we?
So my job is to train the judges to make the judges be on time, make the flow of the room go with judging, and then if there's a dispute within the table of the judges, then I make the final call. That was my job.
Yeah, and if you were in the room with her, you could tell, like, if you were not doing what she asked you to do, you got that look that she was like, you don't want to go in a dark room with this woman because she was going to...
Hey, it worked. We got it all done.
Oh, between you and me, I thought it was great. Good cop, bad cop. Also, like, guys, time's up. Let's go. I actually got someone commented back at me for something. I'm like, oh, really? You're going to start something with me?
Oh,
I won't mention the name on this podcast right now, but it was pretty funny.
They probably are not feeling any of this imposter mess. They have
maybe afterwards
the nerves. Yeah, hopefully. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is a topic of emotional goods, meaning that we have to deliver a lot of emotional goods in our day to day, and there are days when you can't keep up that energy and you can't, bartending, for instance. Bartending is constantly engaging and making that person feel better, and hospitality in general. And there are some days when I'm not there. I can't give any emotional because I don't even have it for myself.
You mean you can't please everyone? That's like, I don't know what that means. I thought I had to please everyone all the time.
Right.
And so I find myself when I can't deliver on those emotional goods, that I find myself I'm being fake. Like, people know if I give you a bartender laugh, I've gotten called out from many of my friends, like, that was a bartender laugh. You are not actually laughing. And that fakeness just kind of amplifies my imposter mess of like, oh, they figured that out. And if they can figure that out, then they can figure out all the rest of my faking it till they make it kind of mentality that I'm doing. And have you ever experienced that?
But see, that's kind of it's kind of a good thing, the fake it till you make it. I've actually learned to embrace the fake it till you make it, because a lot of times you'll talk to a professional and they will encourage you to, yes, fake it till you make it. You feel like crap, act like you don't. You feel like the worst person ever, act like you don't. Just
put a smile on, and that'll change the tone of your day.
Yeah, like you just put yourself in that mood. You put yourself in that mindset. Even if you're not really feeling it, at least that effort and positivity is better than, like, I'm not telling you to be not authentic and not yourself, but sometimes you just gotta put a little smile on it, like you just said, just to kind of make the day brighten up. I mean, I didn't want to like super go into this, but
no, you're okay. If you don't mind me interrupting.
Go ahead.
So I am the worst at telling people at work, oh, just smile. You know, like I used to be one of those people that thought the same thing. Like you can muster up enough smile because you're at a job, you know, and if someone's upset, you know, and I finally one day someone's just like, you know what, Michelle, I just can't smile today. Like I can't do it.
Yep. Sometimes you don't have it. It's really real. You don't have it. Yep.
And then I realized that I have to figure out a different way instead of telling them to smile.
Yeah.
Because this isn't an acting job, even though hospitality is all about acting.
It's an acting job.
It is totally a therapist job.
Yeah.
It is acting.
Yeah.
And man, sometimes it's just like make believe, because sometimes the people that you get asking for the things that they're asking, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
This is the first time in my life I'm going to say the guest is not always right.
Oh.
And I used to live by that. I used to try to be accommodating to a ridiculous point where, you know, part of my dignity was gone. And now I just won't do it. It's very hard. Life has changed in the last 3 years. But I also know that I can't tell my staff to smile anymore because it's not really fair. You got to figure out a different way of doing it because life is just not that easy sometimes.
Well, yes, I 1000% agree with that. And I've heard and read a lot of times, especially for women, and I get the opposite the all the time, but women are like, don't tell me to smile. And like a guy's like sometimes guys like trying to hit on them and say, hey,
this is a different story.
No, I'm saying they just say smile and I don't want to smile. Okay, I'm sorry, didn't tell you to smile. That's not my thing, telling people to smile. But what I was getting at is, like I said, I didn't want to super bring it up, but I got to bring it up anyway. Just world conflict and things that are going on in other countries and other places. And you and me and Ambrosia talked about first world problems all the time. And things suck. We have family members that leave us suddenly and early. We have things that happen to our kids. We have things that happen to good friends of ours, things we can't control. But at the same time, we're sitting in a closed, we got a roof over our head. It's heated. It's heated. We're not like sitting here starving and shivering. We're doing a podcast.
Right.
And
sipping on cider and Malort. Like, come on, like I don't know how more perfect it can be.
That's what I'm saying. It can be bad. Stuff happens. Stuff sucks. I'm with that. I'm not trying to discount anybody's ailments. You get sick, you know, everything else. But at the same time, sometimes you have to look at the good things that you have going on and be thankful for. And that's what helps me a ton. Because, like, sometimes I'm sitting at work like, why am I even here? And where could I be other than here? And then I think of good places on the beach, or I could be sitting in a gutter somewhere. So
you think maybe it's because people don't, if you've never experienced being in the gutter, you don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know. You don't have that idea.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good and a bad thing at the same time. I mean, I think it's awesome that people have the privilege to not even know what being ass out is like.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. That's great. But at the same time, that makes people not appreciative of the awesome stuff that they have going on.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I that's not a pity party at all, but when I was going through the imposter syndrome was also the same time when I hit rock bottom, when I was also drinking a lot. And I remember I was dating somebody and I was really drunk and I had said, well, the only reason, it was something about the only reason that I'm not doing this or that is because you're in my life. And I also drove home drunk that night. And it was very clear that I was going to get broken up with the next day because I cannot be saying someone else's life is worth more than my own.
Yeah.
And like for me, by the way, I've had alcohol problems my entire life. I probably am at one of the best points I've ever been in my entire life. I've never stopped drinking. I have taken time off of drinking and I don't need to drink. And I remember very clearly during those 3 years of the imposter syndrome and my mental illness that I said to my therapist, I went there for her. She's an alcoholic therapist, also a couple counselor. And she told me that I needed to stop drinking. And I told her that I can't stop drinking. I don't want to stop drinking. I work in the industry where I'm in beer. I'm in, all these things. What I need help from you is I need to control it. And she's like, okay. And I said, if we can't get to that point, then I need to find a different therapist.
Oh, wow. You dope.
Well, and that could have.
You told her exactly what you
But
wanted.
see, that also could have been.
badass.
But it also could have been during the time. Like, I know I needed help.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what type of help I needed. But I just knew that I wasn't going to stop drinking.
Right.
So, that's even more problems. But this is why I want people to understand that, like, in this world, you can go through all these problems and still own your own place. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just need to know how to get help.
Yes.
You need to know where, rock bottom's rock bottom. You got to start growing up from there.
I'm telling you right now, I'm stealing this episode. It's going to be on my podcast too. Because this is what I talk about a lot on my podcast.
Yeah, let's Department 3C.
Well, no, it has a new name now.
Oh, great.
But
Update us.
Firecast.
Firecast.
Love it.
It's just the name of the podcast now. Firecast is a Department 3C production. I still got to put the Department 3C in there because it's my business. So, but Firecast is the new name of the show. And that's what we talk about, all kind of stuff. But mental health is the reason I even started the podcast in the first place. I had a really hard time a few years ago. And one of the biggest things is all too often people don't feel like they can talk to anyone. They just feel like, oh, I got to keep this inside, or I can't say nothing. And that's not the case. There's so many different people and resources and people who actually get paid to listen to you.
Yeah.
And people who actually went to school to listen to you. So a lot of times we don't even know how to access those resources, which I didn't. And the best way that you can teach somebody something is to just tell them, just say, hey, this is something that exists.
Yeah, starting the conversation, which is why I was so excited that Michelle wanted to start this conversation. I'm looking at my notes from what I was researching, and I've been on a heavy Usher rotation lately. Heavy Usher rotation. And I wrote down, I want the confidence of a 90s R&B artist.
I'm with that.
Nice.
You know what? I was listening to some 90s R&B this morning.
I'm obsessed with it right now. I bet 90% of them had feelings of being an imposter.
Absolutely. I'm sure if you could sit down and speak with some of those individuals, yes, absolutely.
I think it's known even in the actors and actresses and even the music industry that it's a stage, it's a performance.
It's a performance,
and then they
right.
walk off the stage and they're not that person, but
Right.
yet we all think they are.
Right.
So I can't even imagine how their brains work.
Right.
When someone sees you all the time and just remembers that one word or that one phrase from the one movie you did, and you're constantly being told that all the time, and you're like, I'm not that person.
That's the man that just passed away, Bob Saget. Because he was like so nice on the show. America's Home is funniest home videos, nice on the show. Next thing you know, he's in Half Baked talking about S&D for crack.
Right, and he was in the HBO show with the Entourage. And he was just
I never
a
watched that
constant,
show.
like, horrible comedian that was dropping the F word, the everything. Like, he was just raunchy.
Yeah.
And so some people, I even remember someone asking me, they're like, wasn't he kind of like a raunchy, like kind of a jerk anyway? And I'm like, no, that was a role he played on Entourage.
Yeah.
That's not his real life.
Yeah. So it's like you said, you see an actor, they putting on a performance. Unless you like grew up with this person, you don't know how that person really is. That's why, that's another thing. We in these first world countries get caught up in other people's lives. Now that's the people we care about too much, is people who don't even know we exist. So
I just wonder at what that graph looks like of power and privilege, and where the imposter mess hits with the more power and privilege that you have, or maybe separate, the more power or the more like inherent privilege that you have, and where the imposter will come in at different levels. I'd be curious to find out.
I'd be very curious about that. I think one of the awesome things my mother ever made us do was, we came from, my mom and dad were married, and then my father left our family. He was an alcoholic too, go figure. I got it from him, because it is definitely genetic somehow or something like that. I'm pretty sure it is, though. There's something that's got to be, at least in the brain waves. And the mental illness definitely came from my dad's side of the family. So but with that being said, my father left us when I was like 12, and then he died when I was 18. So my mom's always been a single mom. We owned a hotel and a restaurant in Wisconsin Dells. And so at the age 13, I was doing dishes, bussing tables, serving at 14, bartending at 16. So looking
That's
back
Wisconsin.
at
That's
it's
some
totally Wisconsin,
shit
right?
right there.
Hey, when I was 16, I looked like I was 21. I'm hoping the opposite happens now. Now that I'm 47, do I look 35? You guys can't see me. I know that. But that's the thing. Like, my mom didn't have any money. We ran a restaurant and a hotel, and it wasn't working out. And so I had to work for everything we did, but I was able to buy my own car at 16 because I waited tables. So I feel... And there's nothing wrong with growing up with money. Please, I think it's great. If you're able to do it and you have the means and you have a family and you're able to take care of them like that, that's awesome.
Right.
But I do think that there needs to be some kind of discipline and some kind of goal to make you understand that there are certain things that you have to do for yourself.
Right.
And when I had to pay for my own college and get my first job, for me, it was, I worked for everything I've done. My first job paid me really well. I worked at TGI Fridays in Bedford Park.
Nice.
And my teacher looked at me and he's like, why aren't you going like with some culinary group or this and that? And I said, because I paid for my own schooling and this place is going to pay me big money. And they did. I got bonuses. I got this. I got that. And what did I do? I spent it all. It was so great.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is like, I feel like also knowing where to get yourself through every year, like every job I ever took after that, it was less money, but it was a startup.
Right.
So like, I know I'm humble. I hope I'm humble. I think I'm humble. See, I almost had the imposter
You
thing
almost
happen,
did
right?
it. Almost did it.
I feel like I'm humble. I want to help other people and things like that. So like for me, it's the thrill of the game and it's getting to where you want to go. But I think everyone needs to be an experience of some sort to be able to achieve what you need to achieve, but do it with work. Whether it's mental work or physical work, you have to get there. I think it's just a good thing. And I don't have children, so I don't know if I'm just talking now because the malort is hitting me or not. But I feel like if you give yourself a goal to achieve something that you've done really hard work on, whether it's art, whether it's a business, whether it's, the way you work, as long as you can see that achievement there, then you understand it. But if someone's just giving you something all the time and you don't actually have to work for it, I think it's a little tough to understand how other people go through life.
It is, like you said. How do you know about being in the gutter unless you've been there? And then, you can look at it enough times and say, "Ooh, I wouldn't want to be there," but unless you sitting there. So it's the same thing with work. You can't just receive everything and expect to know how to just turn it on when you've never had to turn it on. The work ethic.
COVID taught me that. if nothing else in my life taught me that, COVID taught me that, because I remember that week when everyone's like, this is going to get shut down.
That was exactly 2 years ago.
Right now.
It was right now. Exactly 2 years ago.
Yeah, because
I just flew back from DC after doing a Calvados women's class at Ancho, and it was right now.
Right.
Are you listening to her?
Yeah, exactly.
After I got back from DC doing a Calvados class at Ancho.
Yeah.
Badass right there, sister.
I'll take it.
All right, good.
But yeah, so 2 years ago. So COVID has taught you.
Well, it not taught me. What it did to me at that point in time is scare the shit out of me. Because here we just bought a bunch of food. It was St. Patty's Day weekend.
Oh God! Oh my God!
We were so ready to do St. Patty's. It was Saturday. Sunday, I ended up letting go of my chef. So that means I would have to be the chef at the time.
Oh, I remember this.
And Monday was the last day restaurants were going to be open. And Tuesday, they closed the doors. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? And Tuesday is our payroll, or Wednesday is our payroll day. So the first batch of payroll goes out the door. No money's coming in for the next week. The week after that, PSL. We want to pay. We want to do something for our employees.
Can you tell you what PSL is?
Yeah, it's paid time or paid sick leave. And at the time,
some people don't have that. So
I know. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah.
it's good.
And you know what? We did a lot of things above and beyond. So we made sure that our staff got their PSL, and then later on they ended up amending the law where if you are Chicago, if you work in Chicago as a business, you had so much PSL that you had to pay, your staff. And we did it because, of course, everybody said it's only going to be a month.
Yeah.
And so here I'm watching the bank account go down and down, yet I still want to take care of my employees. They emptied out the entire fridge because this food was going to go bad.
Yeah.
So they still came over. They packaged anything that they could that was perishable, and they took it with them. And, a week or two later goes by, and we're like, what are we doing? What's happening? We've still got bills to pay. We still have these things rolling in, and there's nothing refurbishing that bank account.
So at that time, did you have time to think about being an imposter?
No.
There you go.
No, I have to say at that time, I was not an imposter. I didn't even once feel that way. My heart turned to, holy shit, how are we going to take care of all these people? And how are we going to take care of ourselves? And are we going to have to shutter?
Yeah.
I think that's why I stay so busy, so I don't have time to think about doing anything.
Oh, I'm 100% guilty of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm a
right in there
workaholic,
with you
so
guys.
I don't have to think about it because being vulnerable is scary. And that's something else that I wanted to touch upon is the vulnerability of admitting this, having the conversation. How did you get to the point where you were able to be vulnerable?
Well, I have very many different levels of say the word.
Vulnerability.
Thank you. I feel that a lot. I don't always show it, but I feel it. God, I don't know how to answer this question, I guess, because
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's only because if you don't have vulnerability, I don't think you could be honest with anyone. I think that that's something you have to express, because if you don't express that, it's just going to hurt you. I think it's okay to show that because you are human. I like being human. I learned this after my 3 years of being in a messy situation with my own brain. So you just got to shed that curtain, and you've got to be able to say it, but you also have to know how to do it, because vulnerability could look like a weakness to some. I think you should use it as a human trait rather than something that is weakness,
I mean, I think you're very strong for being vulnerable on a recorded record of your feelings. I find massive strength in that, opposed to a vulnerability or a weakness.
I just don't want anyone feeling, I don't even know. Like I said, I don't know how to explain this. We are humans. We're going to have all these different feelings. It's okay to express them.
Right.
If you cannot express them, then you're not human. And I also think that if I can tell my story, then hopefully people going through the same instance and the same idea can also feel better about telling theirs, or at least going to seek help. Because if you don't go seek help, you're not going to you may hurt yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you may get to a point where something might happen that you don't even expect to, or you don't even want to. You know, like for me to go back to it, I used to drink and drive during that time because I'm like, well, I was by myself. I'd get in the car drunk, and well, I would never, like, if I die, I die. It's no big deal. Am I going to hurt myself? Am I going to kill myself? No. That is something I knew I couldn't do. But the thought that in my vehicle, if something happened, and it wasn't until one day someone's like, well, how is that accident going to happen and you're not going to hurt somebody else?
Yeah.
Boom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I just think that is a wonderful pearl of wisdom of everything that you said, of it's important to realize and be vulnerable, or you're going to hurt somebody.
Hurt someone or yourself.
Hurt. Yep. Somebody gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
And not in not in the mom way.
Right. And sitting here too, like being that imposter syndrome, I'm kind of like, oh shit, people are going to take pity on me. I don't want you to take pity on me. And that's the big thing too, is that I think people have to understand, because I'm telling you my story is not because I want you to take pity on me. It's because I want you to get help if you've had the story in your own brain.
Yeah. If anything that is being said kind of relates, and you say, I kind of feel like that too, especially, most times in the podcast, you're sitting around listening to it by yourself or in the background while you working out, washing dishes, cleaning the apartment, whatever you're doing. If you resonate with anything that's being said, know that you're not alone, and there's ways that you can find somebody. Like I said, there's people who have went to school, get paid. There's people that do it for free. that will listen
Absolutely.
That will listen to you.
Yes,
Well, they're not free, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. But when you get that $500 bar tab,
I don't know. I'm going out with you if you got a $500 bar tab.
Well, not by myself.
I bet the three of us can do a $500 bar tab.
Well, not if I know the bartender. We can knock that down a bit.
True that.
But I mean, you're sitting here. We're sitting here in a room of three immensely talented people that have these feelings, and so I don't think that there's any level of experience or any level of where you're at in life that you're unjustified for feeling this way. And I would really like to do some research on some places to get help and reach out, and some more resources, if you would, to read more on this subject. So stay tuned for that. With that, Sev, do you have anything else that you'd like to bring up on the show?
Just that. Again, this is the first episode of
We're diving in.
No, just that's
It's a pretty
all.
intense
Welcome
episode.
2022.
You know what?
Right.
I think it's appropriate for 2022.
This couldn't be any more perfect.
You know
Right.
what? It's kind of like a reset button on the world. I mean, we have, like I said, we all have mental trauma from the past 2 years in some way or another. Like even thinking of my little kids. My daughter, she hasn't been to school without a mask ever. She doesn't even know what that's like to go to school without a mask. So when that changes, it'll be a whole new world. They were on virtual school. Now they're back to regular school. School got shut down in between everything else. So like I said, it's kind of like a reset button for a lot of things, just the entire global climate. And not saying that we wanted that to happen or it should have happened, but it did in fact happen. Everybody got screwed. So
Just a thought on your other podcast. You should probably interview your children.
Oh, I did that before. I'm going to interview them again.
That's one of
so I
my
was just
favorite
thinking-
episodes.
And then go to a year later and see how they think about the same questions. Just make sure the questions are the right questions, and then ask them a year later. Because I agree with you. I am very interested to see how it has changed the world for anyone that is between the ages of first grade till fresh or senior high school almost, because they got stripped of a lot of things that we normally have had in our past lives, but yet some of them are actually thriving off of being virtual because of the different mental health issues that all these kids are having, whether it's anxiety or, there's so many, I don't know, but
sensory.
It's just, I like virtual to an extent because it was almost like I got to go to open house every day without having to be there. I could hear what the teachers were saying, hear what the kids were saying, hear how they were interacting, how they were learning. And then my other daughter, my oldest daughter, she was valedictorian of her class and didn't even get to graduate. Had to give a speech. They made her pre-record the speech. And then they edited it, and so that wasn't cool. It just was whack. So everybody got screwed in one way or another.
Well, congratulations to your daughter.
Yes, absolutely.
Valedictorian, that's huge.
Yep, we are.
She going to college?
She's in college. She's going back to college because COVID messed her up again. So. It's
on our next episode.
It's a huge mess, but like we were telling her, everybody, it's not just you, everybody got screwed. So I don't know if that's a consolation or what it is.
The whole world is in chaos. Yep, the whole world.
Speaking of chaos,
that's just how we started.
Bam! Well done. Where
you.
can we find Eris?
You can find Eris at 4240 West Irving Park Road, Chicago, Illinois 60641, in the old Irving Park District.
It's a beautiful building. You did such a great job.
Old Masonic Temple turned into a Korean church, then turned into a woman-owned and operated brewery and cider house with a full-service restaurant.
That's so dope.
So outside of going to that physical location, can you find your products in and around Chicago, anywhere else?
Absolutely. We have some canned products of our ciders, which we actually didn't really talk about too much, but that's okay. I don't mind because we had this great conversation about everything else in the world. Mm-hmm. But yes, so we have 4 brands in cans right now. A Blush, a Pedestrian Dry Cider, a Blueberry Mosaic Hopped Van Mojo, and a Peach and Bong, which is Peach and Basil. These are 12-ounce cans, and they're located at like Binny's and Trader Joe's, and then also so many independent bottle shops.
Shout out to the independent bottle shops.
Absolutely. So we're very lucky to be able to keep the business going during COVID because we had the cans and the support of our community.
Absolutely. Sev, you are going to love Van Mojo. You're going to love Van Mojo. I can't wait.
That was the other sweet thing. People was like getting drunk in the crib, but like by themselves. Like,
Funny, I did the exact opposite.
And now the gas is going up. People be driving less.
What, $7 an hour?
A gallon?
$7 a gallon?
Yeah. So COVID's just working. You got to take those lemons and turn them into lemonade. Who taught us that?
Oh, I don't
Beyonce. Oh my God, Ambrosia, you failed
I thought you were talking about the origin of
Women
the phrase.
rule the world.
Oh,
No, I was
Beyonce, if you're listening,
I was just talking about
slide into my DMs.
Queen Bee.
And on that note, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming out and starting this conversation and letting us taste this amazing cider. I'm so excited. I just love everything about Eris, not only just the building, but the playfulness and the not taking yourself so serious. And like, you put glitter in your fucking cider and it was delicious. It was gorgeous.
Oh my God.
I love it.
It was so much fun because I'm around so many amazing people that make ciders that are traditional ciders that, reflect the apple and all of this fun stuff. And one day we were just talking about what Eris is, and we were like, well, our birthday is coming up, so we wanted to do this cider called Punks, which is the reason why we use Punks is because our birthday's on Groundhog's Day. So it's Punxsutawney Phil.
Punxsutawney Phil.
Correct. And so we use the word punks, and you could take the word punks and flip it upside down. So our bottle that we made for this, we had glitter in it. So you would purposely flip the bottle upside down. The name didn't change. Flip it back up. So the glitter goes into the bottle, and then you poured it out, and you had all the sparkling glitter. And it was pineapple upside down cake. Pineapple, cherry, and vanilla.
If you're into
I
exploring,
thought I was like a good marketer. That is like marketing genius. Like,
Thank you.
I thought I had some good ideas. Those are phenomenal. The only thing I can think of is like a Dave Chappelle thing. If you drinking glitter, do it make your pee-pee twinkle?
It does not make your pee-pee twinkle.
can confirm.
And I was checking to make sure that the poo-poo didn't have it either. And I did not see any of that either.
That only happens when you eat diamonds.
That would be very sharp going through.
I'm just saying what the man said. Make you,
I hear you. I saw that. Yep.
Make your poo-poo twinkle. So...
So if you're thinking about getting into cider, you don't know where to start, Eris is a great place to start because there is something for everyone. And no matter what flavor profile you like, even if it's not cider and you try some ciders and you're like, no, they've got beer and spirits and beautiful chaos.
Guys, thank you so much for allowing me to be on this podcast. I really appreciate both of you.
Absolutely. So with all that being said, with this extra super duper dope long podcast, let us know if there's anything else that you would like to hear from us, anything that you think, because we love feedback. So what libation should we dive into next?
Comment, ask questions, anything at all, and you can reach us at
Designated Drinkers Podcast at gmail.com.
We're on Instagram at Designated Drinkers Podcast.
We're on Twitter at Drinkers Podcast.
And we are on Facebook.
Yeah, because of me.
Well done. Oh, we're also on Apple Podcast.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about that.
That finally happened.
Yes,
Hey, Apple.
I forgot all
Thanks
about that.
Thanks for finally letting us in.
We're on Apple Podcasts now, so you don't have to just SoundCloud us or however else you were finding us. So
when are you guys doing the TikTok?
I have a TikTok problem. I'm not allowed. I have a complicated relationship with TikTok.
I'm hoping TikTok goes the way of Snapchat.
It won't.
And
it won't be a Vine. It won't be a Snapchat. It's here to stay.
Well, Snapchat's still around too.
I mean, I'm 47 and I use Snapchat, so hey.
I have a complicated relationship with TikTok. That's you, Sev.
It's hard enough for me to keep up with 3 podcasts, a job, 3 kids, 4 jobs.
Like how many businesses?
2 businesses and a nonprofit.
Oh my goodness. And as we talked about imposter syndrome, that apparently is not happening anymore in this con.